So today, we're going to tackle one of the absolute biggest ideas in all of science. We're going to piece together the puzzle of evolution by really digging into its most powerful engine, natural selection. All right, let's jump in.
You know, it all kicks off with this massive question that has fascinated thinkers for literally centuries. Why is there such an incredible, mind-boggling diversity of life on our planet? And why does every single creature seem so perfectly built for its environment? From the bottom of the ocean to the top of a mountain, how did it all get to be this way?
Well, for a young naturalist named Charles Darwin, a huge clue came from this tiny remote group of islands. He noticed that the finches on the Galapagos, while they look kind of similar, had totally different beaks depending on which island they were on. Some were these thick, tough beaks for cracking open seeds, while others were super thin and sharp, perfect for nabbing insects. It was this one specific, really elegant observation that lit the fuse on a truly revolutionary idea.
All right, so here's the game plan for today. We'll start by exploring this planet of puzzles that Darwin first saw. Then we'll get into the core rules of selection. After that, we're going to crack open the evidence locker to see the proof, take a quick look at the evolution equation that lets us measure change, and finally, we'll see why this is a never-ending story. Okay, our journey kicks off in the 19th century on a ship called the HMS Beagle. This is where Charles Darwin's voyage showed him not just a stunning variety of life, but also all this geological evidence that proved the Earth was way, way older than anybody had thought.
Okay, so right off the bat, we need to bust a huge myth. This famous quote really gets to the heart of what Darwin was saying. Evolution is not about being the biggest or the strongest or the smartest. Nope, it's all about how well a species can adapt to a changing world. It's all about adaptability.
But how does this actually work? How does adaptation happen? Well, Darwin came up with a mechanism he called natural selection. And you can think of it as a pretty simple but unbelievably powerful set of rules that explains how life changes over time.
So for natural selection to kick in, you basically need 4 key ingredients. First, you need variation. Different traits within a species, like different colors or sizes. Second, those traits have to be inherited from parents. Third, you've got differential survival, which just means some of those traits help you survive better than others. And finally, differential reproduction. The survivors with those good traits tend to have more babies. You put those 4 things together, and bam, evolution is practically inevitable.
And that leads us right into this word you hear all the time, fitness. Now, in biology, fitness has absolutely nothing to do with how much you can bench press. It's all about one thing, reproductive success. An organism is fit if it's good at passing its genes on to the next generation. That's it. The more successful kids it has, the higher its evolutionary fitness. That's the only currency that matters in this game.
Okay, so Darwin had this brilliant theory, but how do we know it's true? Well, for the last century and a half, scientists have been filling up this massive evidence locker that just overwhelmingly supports natural selection. Let's go take a look inside.
And what's amazing is that the evidence comes from all over the place. The fossil record gives us this incredible timeline of change through the ages. Comparative anatomy shows us how different animals are often built from the same basic blueprint. Biogeography shows how species are spread out across the planet in patterns that only make sense if you account for evolution. And get this, we have direct observation. We can literally watch it happening right now.
Let's zoom in on this anatomy piece for a sec. Over on the left, you've got homologous structures. A human arm, a bat's wing, a whale's flipper. They look different, they do different jobs, but underneath it all, they're built from the same set of ancestral bones. Now, on the right, you have analogous structures. A bird's wing and an insect's wing both do the same thing. They're for flight, but they evolved in completely separate ways. Both of these are just fantastic examples of evolution in action.
But maybe the most mind-blowing evidence, the real smoking gun, comes from inside the cell itself. By comparing the DNA and protein sequences of different species, we can see their family relationships written right there in their genetic code. The more similar the DNA, the closer the relatives. It's like having the blueprints for the entire tree of life.
So you might be thinking, okay, this is all ancient history, right? Well, not exactly. We can actually measure evolution as it happens. Population genetics gives us these really cool mathematical tools to see if a population is changing or evolving right now. To measure change, you first need to know what no change looks like. And that's where something called the Hardy-Weinberg equilibrium comes in. It's basically a model of a perfect hypothetical population that is not evolving at all.
So, if a real population's genes match this baseline, we know nothing's really happening. But if they're different, we know that some evolutionary force, usually natural selection, is at work.
And this is the simple little equation that makes it all work. Here, P and Q just represent the frequency of two different versions of a gene, or alleles. Think of it like the gene for white wool versus the gene for black wool in sheep. This equation gives us that perfect snapshot of what the population should look like if it's standing still.
Okay, let's make this real. Imagine we've got a flock of 900 sheep, and exactly 9 of them are black. Now, we happen to know that black wool is a recessive trait, so we can use that one piece of information, those 9 black sheep, and plug it into our equation. As you can see when we run the numbers, this lets us figure out the frequency of both the black wool gene and the white wool gene in the entire population. It's a really cool way to get a genetic snapshot of a group.
All right, so this stuff isn't just locked away in textbooks or old fossils. Natural selection is a powerful force that is shaping our world right this second. So let's jump to our final section and see how this story is still being written today.
I mean, we literally see this happening all around us, right now. The evolution of antibiotic resistance in bacteria, that's a perfect and pretty scary example of natural selection in real time. Same thing with insects becoming resistant to pesticides. And then there's the famous peppered moths in England, which changed color to blend in with polluted trees, and then changed right back when the air got cleaner. These aren't ancient history. This is happening on a human timescale.
So here's the big takeaway, the thing to really remember. Evolution never, ever stops. Natural selection is this dynamic, continuous process. As long as our environments are changing, and they always are, the pressures that shape life are going to keep changing too, constantly pushing and pulling species in new directions.
And that leaves us with a really big, kind of urgent question for our time. Humans are now changing the planet faster than at any point in history. So, knowing what we know about this powerful, unending process of adaptation, what do you think the next chapter in the story of evolution is going to look like? Thanks for watching.